Good evening. It is dry as paper in here. I feel like I'm going to crack and fall apart. So, uh, I wanted to talk today about for my theater educator friends about the problem that we are all having. And I hesitate to call it a problem. It's just the way it is right now. That our kids have forgotten how to school. Um, which is how somebody put it on one of the Facebook groups that I'm in for teaching theater. They've just forgotten how to be students. And it's true. It's been 2 years since we've had consistency in the classroom. Our students, our school right now is experiencing a sharp rise in students who are out with COVID. Actually, students who are out in general. I don't necessarily want to specifically say COVID. We've got a lot of kids out because of just regular seasonal illnesses, flu, cold, um, exhaustion, literally, that happens around Christmas time. A lot of people get sick just because they're doing too much. And because of COVID, they're not pushing themselves to come to school, or their parents aren't making them come to school, because when they get to school, if they're running a little fever or they're sneezy or they're coughy, we send them home. And because we don't know uh, if they might be carrying COVID. So a lot of people out, which has led to crazy inconsistency in the classroom. Incredibly difficult on teachers to try to maintain the kids that are in the room, keeping the kids that are gone caught up on what's happening in the room, and trying to keep any kind of planning moving forward. Because if you're always going back and trying to catch up kids, chunks of kids, not just a kid you could handle, two kids you could handle, 5 to 7 who are gone for a week and a half at a time, that's hard. And it's hard on teachers. And it's hard on productions. If you've been following along at home, our Christmas production got one show, and then we were shut down because one of our cast members came down with COVID, and we postponed. And we are running into the same thing now with this production. We have students who are out. Um, we have some students who, out of an abundance of caution, are saying, "I'm staying home from rehearsal because I'm sick and I'm going to go get a test." Good for them. But it's incredibly disruptive, and it's changing how we look at what we do. It has to. And it has to change the timeline of how we put theater together. And I would be very curious to know, and I should throw an email out to my friends in the professional realm, how they're dealing with it. That that process, and what you do when your process is interrupted. Because we don't, just the way we run, we don't have understudies. We occasionally have people, if we know there might be an issue. We've done that before with people doing college auditions, and if we know we have shows that overlap or things like that, we'll set up for that. But this is really unpredictable. Um, it also makes it very hard because, on the realm of the kids don't know how to school, I have students who don't, even though they did virtual last year and they passed because they did the work, they've not had their hands on anything. So it's like if you read a lot of recipes but never had access to the kitchen, even if you memorize those recipes, you still don't know how to cook because you've never done it. So I've got a year's worth of kids who are really eager and intelligent, and they work so hard, but they've never been in the kitchen. And I cannot split my party anymore, like, to continue with the kitchen analogy. If I had somebody working on the soup and then I had somebody working on the bread, I can't do that. We're either all working on the soup or we're all working on the bread. So everything goes very slowly. It has changed how I do my job, and it has to. It means going slower. It means focusing on a little more on what matters. does the product matter as much as the process? And I think certainly in educational theater, at least for me, the process is huge. How you get from point A to point B matters tremendously when you're learning. Imagine that. I think we forget that sometimes because we are so focused on the product. We're focused on that A, or at least the kids are. They are so focused on that grade at the end that they forget there's a process of learning and failing and learning and failing and getting better and failing again and getting better. But you keep doing this as you go, and eventually you get the product that you want. You get the A. But you might have a whole lot of crash and burns in between. Sometimes that soup just don't taste so good. But that's an important part. So we're going to need a lot more of that to get back to where we want to be. And arguably, we've got a real opportunity with a whole bunch of kids who, if we can bring them on, if we can get them to follow along, they're going to be better in the long run for having gone through this. They're going to be better for us reevaluating how we reach them. But it's really hard and it's really frustrating in the moment because we as teachers, we as artists, we as professionals, we know what we're doing. And it's like, why can I not get that information from my brain to your brain? You just want to grab them and say, okay, we're going to know this now. It doesn't work that way. It never worked that way to begin with, but it really feels like everything's bouncing off a barrier this year, and cracking through that's going to be tough. So I don't have easy answers. I wish I had easy answers. The answer is patience. The answer is the long haul, and the answer is everybody around the education system needs to understand. First of all, everybody is in this boat. Across the board, across the spectrum, I've got very few kids that are focused enough to understand how to reach their goals. This is a nationwide problem. And we can do better if we allow better to happen and not focus on the product before we rebuild the processes. That's a hard thing to do. This turned out way longer than I intended it to, so I apologize. But yeah, so we are going to relearn how to school, but I think we are key to that. We are key to bringing the kids together and showing them a process because we have a clear process. Sometimes math and English don't always have a clear process to a kid. I mean, how many times did you say, when am I ever going to learn this? Or when am I going to use this in real life? And I look at my students and say, that question that you ask your teacher, when do I need to know the Pythagorean theorem in real life? Well, guess what? It's here. We're going to go build a triangle platform. You need to figure out how long that hypotenuse is. But we've got that process that they can then apply to everything else that they do. So hang on to that. Don't lose sight of that. It's a great thing. Your productions are going to make it. You're going to make it. The kids are going to get there. And we will all be celebrating together at the end of the season. So have a great night.